This will be a review on the Marvel Omnibus called the Evolutionary War. This is the cover, and it is a variant because the regular cover, it does not look good at all. On the back here, this is the regular cover on the left. I just didn't like the design of the page and the way the art looked at all on that cover, so I had to go with the variant. This volume is 467 pages. Not one of the bigger volumes in the series. You can take a look at the page count. Doesn't look as thick as previous volumes. Right here on the side it says Evolutionary War. This is the back of the volume. And the cover price here is $74.99. And I got this online for just under $40 new. Opening this up, you can see that says the Evolutionary War Omnibus in silver on the inside volume of the book. They always have a high quality format in how they design it, which looks really nice. This is the opening page. And in case you're wondering, this collects X Factor Annual 3, Punisher 1, Silver Surfer 1, New Mutants Annual 4, Amazing Spider-Man Annual 22, Fantastic Four Annual 21, X-Men Annual 12, Web of Spider-Man Annual 4, West Coast Avengers Annual 3, Spectacular Spider-Man Annual 8, and Avengers Annual number 17. There is a whole host of writers and artists and inkers and letterers. This isn't specified for one particular artist. It really is a group project. Table of contents reads X Factor Annual 3, 1988, and it ends on issue Avengers Annual 17, 1988, Chapter 11. Let me talk about the Evolutionary War without spoiling it, and it can be accomplished. This is what the score is, okay? The Evolutionary War is about this character called the High Evolutionary, who was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby back in those days, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, he's evolved into some, for lack of a better word, a godlike being, or maybe like a demigod, really. He sees that the human species is going to be one day an evolutionary dead end, and that, you know, it's going to go downhill for all of humanity. And he wants to evolve everyone to the next level of human being at, let's say, a higher level. And he wants to do this for everyone on the whole entire globe and planet. And he has the means to do this, but before he could enable his plan, he has to look into or deal with genetic anomalies in the human race. And as you can imagine, he is also not asking permission to evolve people. So that's immediately gonna cause conflict with a bunch of other people on the planet that, you know, he has these goals to change everyone, and he didn't ask the people about what he's gonna do. And that's going to set the conflict for this crossover event. And this crossover event was basically Marvel would make these 64-page square volumes back then, and they would all be tied into one theme. I really like this Evolutionary War, but there is something you should note, and I'll tell it to you right now. On this volume, even though each annual is listed as 64 pages, it's not, because about 30 to 40 pages dealt with the Evolutionary War storyline, and there was a 5-page backup about the High Evolutionary, which is included here. But all the other backups in those annuals that had nothing to do with this storyline, nothing, absolutely nothing. They were pin-ups, or little stories that had nothing to do with this evolutionary story, they are not included here. And I mention that because some people like to be completist when, you know, if you're getting an issue, you get all the pages of that issue. And that's not the case here. And I could understand why, because if they included all those extra pages, not only would this volume be more expensive, but they have nothing to do with the storyline at all. It would take you out of the story to read that stuff. It would just take you out of what they're trying to present here. And so what you get here is the main story and the backup, but none of the other extra pages. And I'm actually okay with that, because the format here is presented so well. I should mention, as usual with the Marvel Omnibus material, it's printed on high quality paper, and the color reproduction is really nice. And before I get into the main story, which I already mentioned, my suggestion personally is, before you even go to the main story and read what the Evolutionary War is about, I would say please read page 402 to the end, the backup story. Just read the backup story. For me, I had really more fun and enjoyed reading the backup story than the main story. What the backup story does is it delves into the entire history of the High Evolutionary before he got his powers, who he was as a character, why he is obsessed with genetics. It goes in depth as a character profile of just who this character is. And when you read and learn who the High Evolutionary is, it makes the main story mean that much more. And then you get it, why he is doing what he does. If you read the main story first, and then you read the backup, you look back at it and then go, oh, now I understand. But if you read the backup first, you get that emotional connection to the character, and then it makes more sense what he's doing in the main story and why. And even though Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created this character, he was not one of their famous ones. I really think that this storyline, the Evolutionary War, that is when these creators here, they recreated the character and made him mean something. It made the character stand out. Before then, previous creators never really made the character something special at all. And in my opinion, the High Evolutionary as a character has never been as good as this Evolutionary War volume. Writers, artists who took over the character even years later to this day, no one has really made great storylines with the character at all. And that's kind of a shame, because it really is a good character. Done right, this character is one of the best. Because he's not a hero, he's not a villain. He walks that line that you could say he's an outright villain, but he really isn't. And as I'm saying, from the ground up, if you'll get to understand the character if you read the backup first and then get to the main story. And times were different here. You could tell at Marvel Comics, Magneto was sort of a hero, or reformed back then still. You had one of the first appearances of Speedball, who was a character who never really quite took off, unfortunately. This is a Spider-Man annual here. And basically, all of these hero storylines before the conclusion is dealing with an aspect of the High Evolutionary and what his plans are, because before he could fulfill his plan, or the master plan I should say, the Evolutionary must deal with a bunch of genetic discrepancies, or it could ruin his plan. And so we're dealing with a totally some different Marvel looks here. Got some nice art there. This is the X-Men when they were in Australia, if you remember that storyline. Showing you some of the pages quickly. Not going to ruin the storyline. Don't want to do that. I would say one of the better crossover storylines made back then. Some issues are better than others, but it's unavoidable when you're dealing with a bunch of different writers and artists. Storyline here. The West Coast Avengers. This was a good one. Had the Gwen Stacy clone, and this is the original cover. And here's the final analysis. The Evolutionary War is one of those enjoyable crossover titles that dealt with all of these books connected. You know, we've seen this used a lot. So if you like those type of crossovers, I think you'll like this volume. But if you don't, then you're probably not going to like this volume or any of those big crossovers. It is one of the better ones, and this omnibus is only 75 bucks, but online you could probably get it like in the $40 range. I would say for that price, 40 or under, it's worth it. But if you're paying like 50 or more, then you don't need to get this volume. So that's my suggestion. Wait for it to be about $40 or under. It's a good volume. It's about 460 pages, as I mentioned. The production quality is good. The paper quality. So that's it. Let me know if you like this type of video. Comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching.